What's going on, Reefers? Blaine here. I am with Brennan from Reef to Aquarium, and soon we're going to be talking with Caleb from Vibrant Corals. I had the opportunity this weekend during Aquashella to hang out with these guys, talk a little bit about how we're bringing corals in from Australia, and kind of just going over the process of getting it into the US, what they've been bringing, and kind of how they get to it. So, Brennan, I'm kind of curious, how did you get into the diving and the collecting from the start?
So, I started in this industry by chance. I was lucky enough to join another company, and I started from there, and I really fell in love with the industry. And I was lucky enough to acquire a license in WA, Western Australia, to collect coral. So
how long have you been with Reef to Aquarium now at this point?
So we've been going for 3 years now.
Okay.
Being from such a small, basically started from my garage. Now we have a 500 square meter warehouse with a 5,000 gallon coral system and a 2,000 gallon fish system for just exporting around the world and supplying the Australian consumers.
Gotcha. So you mentioned you have a fish system as well. So not just corals, you're doing fish as well?
Yeah, okay. Fish, invertebrates, and coral. So.
Gotcha. Okay. And what exact location in Australia are we talking about? I know we were talking a little bit about it at the show. The endemic species from both the different sides are a lot different. And yes. So you're on what side of Australia?
So we're from Western Australia.
Okay.
So we cover the whole of Western Australia, north to south. It is very different to Eastern States and Northern Territory. They deal with a lot of, like Queensland, they collect from the Great Barrier Reef, where we collect in what we class as dirty water. We do have some blue water, but a lot of it is like dirty, turbulent water that we have viz on some days, like probably I can see to my hand. And it's just terrible.
Gotcha. So when you're diving and you're going to collect these corals, how are you able to kind of find those pieces that you know would be popping so well in, the general hobbyist blue light kind of situation? I always have wondered that, you guys are down there diving. How do you find those gems that are in the ocean?
It takes experience a lot of the time. There are certain corals that I can look at and be like, wow, this is going to be amazing. A lot of corals that are found in our clearer water, you can see literally pop and this is going to be amazing. But in that dirty water, we tend to use a type of blue light just to find the fluorescent colors that's going to work in our hobbyist aquariums, because there are a lot of colors out there that look amazing under sunlight, but once you put it under blue light, it looks totally different.
For sure. And I know we have those button scullies from you guys, and those things are super cool. And I remember hearing that you had said you guys have found them in 6 meters of water. Is that correct?
Yeah, so most of our collection is anywhere from about 6 to 8 meters.
Okay.
A lot of those, what we call as shallow water. Some of our deeper stuff is about 10 to 15 meters.
Okay, gotcha. And when you're out there, how long have you been diving now at this point?
Probably personal, about 8 years.
Okay.
And for the company, about 4 years in the industry.
Gotcha. I used to work for a diving and salvage company, so I know the whole diving game. It's a very risky thing to be doing. I'm sure down there when you're underwater, I'm sure you've run into a lot of interesting things. What's some of the craziest things you've ended up running into when you're out there collecting?
So on a daily basis, we deal with Australian olive sea snakes.
Okay.
Which suddenly will be like collecting a piece of coral and it will come through our legs and literally have their head right next to our hammer and chisel. They are one of the most venomous snakes out there. I've dealt with great whites, sharks, where they've had a go at me. That was a very interesting experience. That was chasing fish. And I basically survived that because of one of the collectors who is my mentor, taught me how to handle sharks, and it basically saved my life.
Gotcha. And so you mentioned for the collection, you guys have a hammer and chisel. Is that what you're using to get all the corals off?
Yep. So by law, we're not allowed to use any electrical equipment, just because of frequencies, like how bombing of for mining and stuff, it's not really good for the environment. So we do it all by hand and chisel. Same thing with collecting fish. We use hand nets, barrier nets. No chemicals are used.
Gotcha. Very cool. That's cool that you guys are doing it on a much more natural way, and you're maintaining the health of the ecosystem. Because I know, some collectors, they kind of go above and beyond to do whatever they can possible to get those things. So that's really cool that you guys are doing that. So now when we're talking about exporting these corals out, what's that process look like? How do we get these corals, once we've collected them, they're onto the boat, what's the next step? Are we bringing them to your facility, we're checking them out, and then where do we go from there?
So in a process, it goes on the boat, it goes into our port, which we have a holding system. A lot of these corals are actually dipped once it comes off the boat. So because in the nature, there's heaps of flatworms and nudibranchs and stuff, and in a domesticated environment, we can't have that type of stuff. So we do dip them first there, gets cut and cleaned the first time. It gets shipped down to our PER facility, which also then they are dipped in hydroperoxide for algae and again, pests again. And then they get cut down again if they need to be cut to a smaller size for the pet industry.
Very cool. So now that you guys have kind of got them into your facility, how are we getting them, I'm sure it's quite the lengthy process to be able to get them out of Australia and then getting them towards the States. Is that something that you've seen over the course of time become more difficult, or is it something that you just have always had the same kind of routine for?
So we go a bit beyond what we need to do as a collector. We do hold the coral to make sure that they're in good health. There are a lot of collectors that just collect and just straight away ship it out. It happens a lot, especially with like Indonesia and places like that. We really want to because these are animals, so we do want to make sure they're in good health before they reach the end destination. It has been harder in a sense in regards to new rules. Western Australia was, I'm sure you guys all know about eastern states. They had the new regulations come through about certain species that got pushed on to Western Australia, even though we're a very small quota system. So in East Australia, they collect 220 tons a year of coral. We collect 15 tons, which is a very small amount if you compare it to like the rest of Australia.
For sure.
Yeah, so that's been with the CITES and World Trade Organization, there's a lot more rules coming into place. It's going to be something that will be in long term, but we work with it to make sure that people are still being able to get the certain corals that they love in their tanks.
For sure. And do you see, all these regulations, they're there for a reason, and I feel like they are definitely implemented for the right thing. Do you see that you guys are, during your collection process, do you see that when you're out there collecting, do you see the reefs thriving? Are you seeing them growing? Or what are you seeing when you're out there in the ocean?
So I have a lot of people that come back and say, hey, like, what do you guys, like, after collection, like, can we tell? And if I have a lot of people that just randomly come, just random people come on and I show them around, and basically they'll swim after me and they can't even tell where I've collected, just because because of our small quota system, we really are just cherry picking certain corals. And like, even for like large pieces, the market really isn't interested in such huge corals. So we just usually take a piece of the coral so that we can bring it back, and then we leave the whole colony there so it can regrow.
Gotcha. And when you're out there collecting, what are the things that get you excited? What are the corals that you really, get that excitement from when you're out there collecting? And what's something that kind of like that golden nugget that you're looking for?
So, Scollies has always been a big thing for me, and Gonnies, but Scollies definitely, especially when it comes to masters. Because I've been in the industry for so long, I can tell when it's just going to be something that I've never seen before. One of the pieces at the Aquashella was picked as one of the top corals for the show. that's one that I haven't seen in the 4 years I've been diving for the company. So it's, you know, when it's like something that's super special.
Oh, for sure. Those scollies that you guys had over in the booth were absolutely amazing. I got a bunch of shots of them throughout the course of the show, and I kept telling people over and over again, you guys got to go over to that booth and check out those scollies. Those things are crazy. So yeah, you guys are definitely doing an amazing job, and I love the fact that you guys are cognizant about the reef's health and maintaining that, all while being able to still maintain and provide for the hobby. So that's such a cool thing in my opinion.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming here, being here at the show, having Aquashella, bringing those awesome corals, and also doing this interview with me. It's been an honor to be able to talk to you more about it and get a little inside information about what goes through getting corals from Australia and then bringing them here to the States.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So we just got done talking with Brennan from Reef to Aquarium, and it was really awesome to be talking about, bringing in these Australian corals, and now we're here with Caleb from Brennan. Thank you so much for stopping in. It's such a pleasure to see you guys bringing in these corals. We kind of stopped off on the part where we've now got the corals in the facility over in Australia. How are we getting them over to here, to the States? How are we bringing them to the hobby, to us?
Right, so the biggest thing that we look at is really, because we want to bring stuff in that helps our stores, right?
For sure.
Historically, the quality has not been up to par for what I believe I would accept, and certainly you guys. And I think of Top Shelf Aquatics and Reef to Aquarium, the difference making factor has been the rise in quality,
right,
how the coral is treated beforehand, and the selection itself. And so now that that's kind of been buttoned up, it makes it easy for me to then market in a way that makes it easy for you guys to sell it, right? And so I always base it off of the demand of what the market is asking for. Euphilia is always popular, and what we're seeing a lot of now is a lot of these new meat corals like the button scollies and stuff like that are gaining popularity as we're getting the idea of Western Australian coral out there. And so basically I will kind of look at a forecast projection of what stores are going to be wanting, and I come up with a list. He does the diving, and we kind of balance that back and forth, and then create an order essentially. And it is about a 36 to 48 hour in bag time. And so that's why we really like working with these guys, is they really kind of change the game when it comes to coral from Western Australia.
Do you see what's something you see? Obviously, not the normal hobbyist doesn't get to see all these things every single day, right? So what you've seen so many corals. What kind of gets you excited, right? Like, what's that thing that really kind of brings the kid out in you? That's gonna get you all excited.
Sure. And shout out to the types of people like Jake Adams, Chris Meckley, people like that. In a similar tone for me, when you see a lot of beautiful coral, what starts to stand out more than anything, it's not necessarily the brightest, craziest one. It may just be one that is so different that you've never seen it before, but it may not be the prettiest of the bunch. I'm in particularly love with a black alpha coral we have right now.
Oh, okay.
Is it the most amazing thing from a visual standpoint? Maybe not to some people, but to me, I think it's super cool, right? So, for me, it's always about something different, something you may not see as much, a color combination you don't see as often.
Right. And I mean, obviously we're an aquaculture facility and we pride ourselves in what we kind of farm and what we can create, but not all corals can be farmed, right?
True.
So there's a time and place where you do have to kind of source things. And I feel like the things you're able to source for us are pretty out of this world. So I just want to say thank you so much for what you provide to us and to the hobby. And I just want to say this has been a lot of fun being able to talk about it. And for me, coming in as a hobbyist, I tell that people over and over, this is my first time actually working in the industry, and to be able to kind of get the behind the scenes is very cool, because I feel like a lot of people just go to the local fish stores, right, and they see the coral and they're like, oh, here it is. But it's like, what's the backstory? How did it get here, right? And I feel like there's these corals just have gone through, especially like we're talking about these Western corals that are coming from Australia, they go through the ringer to get over here, and to be able to kind of survive that and make it all the way to the aquarium is quite amazing. And do you think you see, when you're pulling from the wild, are you seeing any difference, or do you see any change of the corals once they get into a more controlled and centralized aquarium system?
That's one of the most rewarding parts of the hobby, right, is having something that is responsibly collected, brought in. It might look a type of way, and then you know, as a wholesale facility, sadly, I don't get to see it happen as much. There are some pieces I do that I keep around, but watching something transform, whether it's at the store or in a customer's tank, right, that's why I got into this, right? You know, and sometimes some of the most unsuspecting pieces will turn into something so incredible, just over time with a little bit of TLC, right? Because, you know, maybe that coral was collected at a depth where it wasn't getting optimum sunlight. It was getting nutrients, but it wasn't creating enough zooxanthellae to really have that vibrance to it, right? And so now in a fish tank or an aquarium, it's getting everything that it needs and then some. You might see something turn into, you know, something like a masterpiece that came in as just, you know, an ordinary coral.
Right, just like you said, it's just like a little bit of TLC. But Caleb, again, thank you so much. This was a pleasure. Guys, if you're looking to grab some kind of corals from Vibrant, you can reach out to us and we can definitely make that happen. I want to say thank you to you guys for watching all the way through this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on any future uploads.